Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session on digital image classification. I'm Dr. Poonam S Tiwari. I'm a program coordinator of IIRS Outreach Program, and so today we'll be talking about digital image classification. You have all attended yesterday's session, Dr. Meenakshi Kumar's session regarding digital image processing, in which she explained what is a digital image, how this digital image is having certain errors which can be rectified, and once this image is free of errors, then the next stage of digital image processing is information extraction. Now, information extraction from a remote sensing image can be done in two ways. The first method is you can visualize that satellite image either on screen, or you can take a printout and do the visual image interpretation, identify the features and mark the boundary of these features. So this was taught to you by Dr. Hina Pandey in her lecture on visual image interpretation. So the second type of information extraction is when we ask the computer itself to find out the features or find out the classes in the image. So now what happens is that this particular procedure, when we ask the computer to find out the features or find out the classes in the digital image, this particular procedure is called as digital image classification. Today we will be talking about digital image classification. So now, as you are all aware that our remote sensing data is a multispectral data. Multispectral, what do we mean by multispectral? Multispectral means that the data is collected in multiple spectral bands. Spectral band means the range of electromagnetic spectrum for which the sensor is sensitive to. So this data is collected in various spectral bands, so it has different layers of data available with it. These layers will be based on the sensor that the satellite has. So it can be your data can have 3 layers, your data can have 7 layers, 10 layers, and in case of hyperspectral images, your data can have more than 100 layers. We will be talking only about multispectral images. So multispectral classification is the process of sorting out the pixels into a finite number of individual classes or categories of data based on their pixel values. Now, if you look at, suppose we have a 4-band data, okay, and we have 8-bit data. 8-bit means that the pixel values can range from 0 to 255. So 0 to 255 in band 1, band 2, band 3, band 4. So when we find out the number of combinations that can happen, there are many number of combinations of pixel values that can be there. But these many number of classes are not possible in a image. So sorting out these pixels so that a finite number of classes can be created out of this infinite number of pixel values, that combination that we have. Okay. Now the pixel, we can select any criteria based on our logic, based on our algorithm that we are using. We can select any criteria and the pixel is assigned to the class with corresponding to that particular criteria. So this is in short digital image classification. There are various algorithms using which we can perform digital image classification. These algorithms can be basically divided into hard classifiers and soft classifiers. Hard classifiers are those classifiers in which the pixel is either attached to a particular class or it is not attached to a particular class. So it is a simple yes and no answer. Whereas the soft classifiers or classifiers which use fuzzy logic, in that a membership function is given to the pixel, and this membership function tells us about the probability of pixel to be put into a particular class. So, hard classifiers can be of two types, supervised and unsupervised classifiers. We can also use certain hybrid approaches which utilize the ancillary information for classification of the image. This particular session will be talking mainly on hard classifiers using supervised and unsupervised algorithms. So the same thing that we have discussed till now, digital image classification is grouping of similar pixels and separation of dissimilar ones. Along with that, it is assignment of class label to a particular pixel. That means we have grouped the pixels, but that grouping of pixel becomes segmentation. But now we have to label these groups also, that this particular group of pixels belong to class water. That particular group of pixels belong to class forest, and so on. Now this entire exercise we are doing so that we can result in a manageable size of classes. The classification methods, as I have already told you, that it can be manual using visual image interpretation methods. It can be computer assisted, that we will be talking in this particular session, and you can have stratified, which uses the hybrid approaches. Now, why should we go for digital image classification? Now, as I have already told you, that there are so many number of combinations of pixel values that can be there in my data set. So, to translate this continuous variability of image data into map patterns that provide meaning to the user, the ultimate aim of getting a data is to generate knowledge out of that data. Knowledge means the map which tells us what is the spatial extent of a particular class, what is the area of a particular class, what is the connectivity, what is the best route. So all these things are there. So this all comes under maps. There are different type of maps. So we using these images, we have to create thematic maps out of these images. So to convert the image data into thematic maps, we have to perform digital image classification. Now, we also want to know what is the land cover feature there, what are the surface characteristics, how is the soil in that area. So all the type of thematic information can be taken into consideration, can be found out using digital image classification. It also finds out whether there is any anomaly in my data set. That means in a particular field. Suppose there is a agriculture area and some fields are showing very bright reflectance. So maybe they are having more salt content, they are more dried, because the soil pattern would not change over such a small area. So that so such anomalous patterns can be found out using digital image classification. Now the same thing we were earlier doing using visual image analysis, but visual image analysis becomes quite time consuming, quite manpower consuming. So digital image analysis is cost efficient in analysis of large data sets. The results can also be reproduced once you have saved the results, saved the signatures. You can rerun the classification and get the classified output again and again. Visual image interpretation was very subjective in its nature, because it was dependent on the operator that was who was performing the classification. But this digital image analysis is quite objective in nature, because it is based on certain defined rules, set criteria are there. Also in visual image analysis, we were having a problem of able to visualize only 3 bands at a time. So this was good enough till the time our sensors were having less number of bands, but nowadays our sensors are having large number of bands. So that is why complex multi-band interrelationship is there, and this digital image analysis, digital image classification is able to analyze the complex pattern of multi-band interrelationship. So now going into the details of digital image classification, we will be talking about a few terms that we will be using in our session. So first term is dimensionality of the data. So there must be certain some statistics people also, so they must be knowing what we mean by dimensionality of the data. Dimensionality means how many sets of data set we are having. So in case of digital images or remote sensing images, every band is one set of data. So if we have a 4-band data, we call it as a 4-dimensional data. If we have a 7-band data, we call it as a 7-dimensional data, and so on. So spectral dimensionality is determined by number of set of values being used in a process. In image processing, each band of data is one set of value. So an image with 4 bands is said to be a 4-dimensional image. The next term that we will be frequently using in the session would be measurement vector. So as you all know that all these bands, they are perfectly co-registered with each other. Now what does this mean? It means that if we pick up one pixel, means suppose I say column second, row fourth. So column second, row fourth pixel, whatever area it is representing on the ground in band 1, it will represent the same area in band 2, band 3, band 4, band 5, and so on. So all these bands, they are exactly sitting on top of each other. So this we mean by saying that they are perfectly co-registered. Now measurement vector of a pixel is a set of data file values for one pixel in all the n bands. So in all the n number of bands. So suppose we select any one pixel and we write down the brightness value or pixel value of that pixel in all the bands, then we call this as a measurement vector of that particular pixel. Sometimes we are working not with one single pixel, we have to work with multiple pixels at a time. So in such cases, certain statistical parameters can be calculated for this group of pixels, and this is what we call as mean vector. So suppose we calculate mean of all the pixels of, not all the pixel, of the selected pixels in band 1, band 2, band 3, band 4, and so on, and arrange them, that becomes the mean vector. Similarly, you can have standard deviation vector, you can have variance vector, covariance, we can calculate variance covariance matrix. So all these parameters, all these things would be required in digital image classification. Okay. Another important concept for digital image classification is transformation of image from image space to feature space. Now, what do we mean by image space? You have seen the image in this form in which all the pixels are arranged in form of based on their rows and columns. So this type of representation or arrangement of pixels that we have seen till now is called as a image space. An array of element corresponding to reflected or emitted energy from instantaneous field of view. So a spatial arrangement of the measurement of reflected or emitted energy. So based on their ground location, the emitted or reflected energy is arranged. So this is very simple, you all know about this. But now for digital image classification, as you have seen in the beginning, we have said grouping of similar pixel. Now what do we mean by similar pixel? Similar doesn't mean the pixel which are neighboring pixels. We are never saying neighboring pixels. We are saying grouping of similar pixel. Similarity that we are looking at is similarity of the pixel values. Okay. Now, the same pixel value, similar pixel value can be found at different location in the image. Okay. Now, if suppose 4 water pixels are found in one part of the image, 7 water pixels are there in another part, 5 water pixels are there in southern part. So it becomes very difficult for the computer to mark these areas. So to overcome this problem, what method is applied is that instead of plotting these pixels based on their row and column, we can plot these pixels in a n-dimensional graph. Please listen to this. We can plot these pixels in an n-dimensional graph based on their pixel values. Now suppose, what does this mean? Suppose we have these pixel A, pixel B and pixel C as mentioned in the slide. This data has two bands, band A and band B. Band 1 and band 2, let us say. So pixel A has pixel value of 34 and 25 in band 1 and 2. Similarly, pixel B has value of 34 and 24. Pixel C has value of 11 and 77. Now when we plot these pixel values, when we take a graph in which one axis is one band, second axis is second band. So suppose x-axis is band number 1, y-axis is band number 2. So when we plot these pixels, pixel A, that means 34 units in x direction, 25 units in y direction, we have marked pixel A. Similarly, pixel B also has been marked 34 and 24. You can see these two pixels have been marked there. Pixel C. Now, pixel C has value of 11 in x direction, 77 in y direction. So, it has been marked there. Now, when you look at these pixels A, B, C, you won't be able to understand which pixel is similar, which is dissimilar. Okay. Whereas, when you look at this graph, you will definitely come to know that pixel A and pixel B, they are close together. So they are near to each other, they are close to each other. That means these are similar pixels, whereas pixel C is a different pixel, or pixel C is for different feature, for different class. So the computer can make the boundary for this class and that class. So that is how the classification is being carried out. So for doing the classification digitally, the data has to be converted from image space to feature space. So this representation of pixels in an n-dimensional graph is called as feature space. So this is a very important concept. Based on that only most of the classification you will be able to understand. So please don't think that feature space can only be two-dimensional. It can be n-dimensional feature space. Graphically we can show only 3 dimensions on here, but mathematically you can have an n-dimensional feature space in which all the n dimensions are at 90 degrees to each other. And in that n-dimensional feature space, all the pixels are plotted. Okay. Now, once the feature space has been defined, then as I have already said that pixel A and pixel B are close to each other. Now, what does close and far off means? We have to mark certain distance. Okay, how we are saying that this is close, this is far? So to do that, we have to calculate the distance between pixel A and pixel B in spectral space, in feature space. Okay, not in the image space. In the image space, they might be located far off. Okay, pixel A can be at northernmost corner, pixel B can be at southernmost corner, but spectrally or in the feature space, they are at one location. So we can calculate the spectral distance between these pixels. The spectral distance is calculated using the simple Euclidean distance formula that we all know. Euclidean spectral distance is this distance in n-dimensional spectral space. It is a number that allows two measurement vectors to be compared for similarity. The spectral distance between two pixels can be calculated using this formula. D is equal to square root of summation from I is equal to 1 to n and summation of di minus ei whole square, where di is the data file value or pixel value in band I and ei is data file value of another pixel in the same band. So like this, go on calculating the distance between the difference between di and ei in all the bands, sum them up and calculate a square root of that. You will get the Euclidean distance. Okay, so now since the basic concepts are over, we should come to the two types of classification. There are basically two types of classification: supervised and unsupervised classification. In supervised classification, the identity and location of some of the land cover types such as urban, agriculture, wet land, they are known a priori. Or what we have to see is, in supervised classification, as the name itself is suggesting, we are supervising the computer. Supervising means we are giving a training to the computer. We are telling the computer that this pixel is belonging to class water. Try to find out similar pixels in the entire image which are water pixels. Okay, so in supervised classification, we have to provide certain training samples, or we have to provide the training to the computer. We have to supervise our computer. The analyst attempts to locate specific sites in remote sensing data that represent homogeneous examples of these known land cover types, known as training sites. Now, when we have demarcated the training site, suppose I have demarcated the training site for water. Now, what should a training site have? It should have some water pixels, okay, but some homogeneous water pixels. Homogeneous means only one single class. It should not have that half of the pixel is belonging to water and half of the pixel is belonging to sand. Otherwise, the computer will get confused. So, it should have homogeneous pixels of that particular class. So, based on those the training area that we have selected, the system will calculate multivariate statistical parameters. The same thing that we have discussed just now. It will calculate mean vector, standard deviation, variance, variance covariance, and all those things. All these statistical parameters will be calculated. Once the statistical parameters for training sites are calculated, every pixel inside and outside of this training site is checked with these training sites using certain criteria. The criteria differs with the algorithm that we are using. So, each pixel, both inside and outside the training site, is evaluated and assigned to the class which it has the highest likelihood of being the member. Now, this what algorithm will be using, based on that the logic gets changed. The second type of classification is unsupervised classification, as the name itself suggesting that we are not supervising the system. Okay, so the identity of land cover type to be specified as classes within a scene are generally not known a priori because ground reference information is lacking or surface features within the scene are not very well defined. So we ask the computer directly to group the similar pixels and based on their spectral characteristics into unique clusters by certain statistically determined criteria. Now, once the computer has made these clusters, the analyst then combines and relabels these spectral clusters into information classes. So, basically these are two different types of classification, supervised and unsupervised classification. So, in between just 1 minute thing, how can you differentiate between supervised and unsupervised classification? You need not answer it to me, just think about it, okay? And when we should use the supervised classification, okay? Just think about it and we will be getting ahead with our session. No need to answer. Think about it. If you have answers, very good. If not, once you get the study material, you can revisit these slides and go on. Okay. So, now going ahead with our session, that is, we will be going into detail of supervised classification. Now, in supervised classification, as I have already told you, that we have to provide the spectral signatures or training sites to the computer. Now, this training sites can be based on my a priori knowledge, or it can be because of knowledge about the area or by visual image interpretation. Now, to select these the classification is based on these training sites. So these training sites, these signatures should be very, very reliable. To select reliable signatures, we should have information about these signatures either spatially or spectrally. So either I should be knowing that okay, the in this area water is available at this particular x and y coordinates. Okay, so I can find out those pixels of that x and y coordinate and say that these pixels belong to water. Or I should be able to identify the water pixels or this vegetation pixels spectrally also. So that depends on the user. Training samples are set of pixels that represent a discernible pattern or a potential class. The system calculates the statistics from the sample pixels and they create parametric signatures for the class. Training data should be collected from homogeneous environment. I am specifying again and again, unless your training site is good enough, you will not be able to get good classification accuracy. If the data is collected, now how many pixels should be there in a training site? So there is a general rule of thumb that if you are using n bands in classification, so each training site should have at least 10n pixels. So more than 10n pixels should be there in the training data. You can collect the training data either by using a vector layer, defining a polygon in the image, or using a class from a thematic raster layer from an image file of the same area. So every software that you are going to use will be giving you different methods to collect the training site. Now once these training sites are collected, we have to find out whether these signatures are good enough or not. So certain statistical tests can be applied to these signatures to check whether these signatures are well discernible from each other or not. So these tests can be performed which can help to determine whether the signature data is a true representation of the pixels to be classified for each class. We can evaluate the signatures that we are taking for supervised classification, or after unsupervised clustering, whatever signatures we get, that also we can evaluate. So signatures can be evaluated by a very simple method by using ellipse. You can draw the ellipse based on the standard deviation in the bands. The standard deviation can be used as axis, and we can draw the ellipses. If the ellipse are overlapping in any one of the band, if the signatures are overlapping, that means your signatures are not good enough. You have to look into your signatures. The distinct signatures are the one which are differentiated or which are separated out at least in one pair of bands. We can also calculate certain statistical parameters to check whether the separability of these signatures. So signature separability is a statistical measure of distance between two signatures. So as I have discussed, that we can calculate the spectral distance between two pixels. On the similar methods, on the same method, we can calculate Euclidean distance between two signature means also using the same Euclidean distance formula. We can also calculate divergence. The formula is given here, or transform divergence to calculate whether the signatures are separable or not. Now the scale of divergence value range from 0 to 2000 as a general rule of thumb. If the value for divergence and transform divergence is coming more than 1900, then the signatures are well separable. If it is 1700 to 1900, the separation is fairly good, whereas less than 1700 indicates a very poor separation between the signatures. We can also calculate another distance parameter that we call as JM distance, Jeffreys-Matsushita distance, and the formula is given here on the screen. The JM distance values that come are in range of 0 to 1414. The JM distance has a saturating behavior with increasing class separation like transform divergence. However, it is not as computationally efficient as transform divergence. So using any method, you can find out the signature separability, or you can look at the ellipses of the signatures and check whether your signatures are well separable or not. So this is just to check whether your signatures are good enough or not, so that the classification that you perform should be good. Once you have collected the signatures, you have to select an appropriate classification algorithm. So there are various supervised classification algorithms which can be used. The choice of the algorithm depends on the input data and the output required. The basically there are two types of algorithms. First is parametric classification algorithms, and the other is non-parametric classification algorithm. Parametric algorithms assume that the observed measurement vector obtained for each class during the training phase is Gaussian in nature. That means it has a normal distribution curve. Whereas in non-parametric classification algorithms, they don't make any such assumption. So there are various algorithms. So one by one, we'll just check a few of these algorithms. The first one is parallelepiped classification algorithm. In the parallelepiped decision rule, the data file values of candidate pixels are compared to upper and lower limit. Now, let me explain using this diagram. Suppose we have taken 5 different classes. Okay, class 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, and our data is a 2-band data. We are using band 4 and band 5. Okay, so these 5 classes are residential, commercial, wetland, forest and water. It can be any classes. Okay, now what we have to do is we have collected signature. Based on the signatures, the mean of these signatures, pixels of signature are calculated in band 4 and band 5. The mean values are plotted, which is coming as this central thing. Okay, now along with the mean, you also can calculate the standard deviation. So suppose for this particular class, the mean is 40 in band 4. So I have plotted 40. Okay, in band 5 also it is just less than 40, so it would be around 37, 38 or so. Okay, so suppose mean is 40 and 38, so it has been plotted here. But along with this mean, I have also plotted the standard deviation, mean minus 1 standard deviation, mean plus 1 standard deviation. Okay, make the boundary. Okay, these two lines have come. Similarly, whatever is the mean, mean plus standard deviation, mean minus standard deviation. So upper and lower boundaries have come. So like this, using upper and lower boundaries along about a mean, we can find out the boundary of the parallelepiped in a particular band. Similarly, if we extend the boundaries in all the bands, we will find that such type of parallelepiped can be created. Now, if a pixel is falling in this parallelepiped, the rule is very simple for this algorithm. If the pixel is falling within this box, then the pixel is classified as this particular class. If the pixel is not falling in this particular class, pixel is left as unclassified. So now we have these two unknown pixels, pixel A and pixel B. So pixel A would be classified in which class? Yes, it would be classified in class number 4, that is forest. In which class pixel B will be classified? It will be left as unclassified because it is not falling in any of the boxes. Okay, so parallelepiped is a very simple rule. So like this, you have to create lower and upper boundary. The parallelepiped algorithm says that if the brightness value of pixel is falling within the lower and higher boundary of all the bands, then and only then the pixel will be classified into this particular class. Okay. Now what happens if the parallelepiped are having overlap? Okay, because these are boxes, they can overlap, like you have seen for signatures, they were overlapping. So if there is an overlap between the boxes, the pixel can be classified. You can use any rule, you can create your own rule. So the rules may be the pixel can be classified by order in which you have created your signature. Suppose I am a forester, so first of all I will try to take the signature of forest. Okay, if some person is a wetland expert, so he will try to take, for him the water class is most important, so he will take the signature of water. So the order of taking signature is also important. So pixel can be classified by any other parametric rule of if the pixel is falling in that overlap area, or if the pixel can be left as unclassified also. There are various advantages and disadvantages of this particular algorithm. The advantage is that it is very fast, very simple. It gives us a broad classification, and it does not depend on normal distribution of the signatures. The disadvantage is that if you look at the parallelepiped, it has corners, whereas the ellipse is a smooth structure, it doesn't have corners. So in the corner, the pixel which is quite far off from this mean also will be classified as this particular class. The next algorithm is minimum distance to means classification algorithm. As the name itself suggests, it is a very simple classification, minimum distance to mean. So what it has to do is, I will go to the same example here. Now we have plotted the mean of class 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, and we have two unknown pixels, pixel A and pixel B. Now what your algorithm will do, minimum distance to means algorithm, what it will do, it will calculate Euclidean distance of pixel A with mean of class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class 5. Any of this mean would be lowest. So whichever distance is lowest, pixel will be assigned into that particular category. So this is minimum distance to means classification algorithm. So if we are applying minimum distance to means algorithm on this particular example, pixel A will be classified in class 4, whereas pixel B, which was left unclassified in parallelepiped algorithm, gets classified as class 3 in this particular algorithm. Okay, so Euclidean distance is calculated for all pixels with all the signature means. Whichever any unknown pixel will definitely be classified. Okay, so all the means distance from all the means is checked. Whichever distance is minimum, the pixel will be classified into that particular class. The signature is that the advantage is that there won't be any unclassified pixel, and this also is very simple, similar to parallelepiped algorithm. But doesn't it means the advantage that it is having, that all the pixels will be classified, sometimes become disadvantage also. So any of the distance would be minimum, so the pixels which should not be classified also become classified. And as you have seen, it is not using, only the mean is calculated and only the mean is used. Nowhere we are using standard deviation or variance. That is why it is not using the variability of the class. Only the mean value is used. So this becomes its disadvantage. So the same thing I have already explained to you. Now, another decision rule is Mahalanobis decision rule. Mahalanobis decision rule is similar to minimum distance, but as in minimum distance we have seen that we are not using the class variability. The standard deviation is not being used. Here in the formula, while calculating the distance, we are using the covariance matrix also. So covariance matrix is used. The formula for distance is x minus mc. X is the measurement vector minus mean vector of the class, transpose of this matrix, multiplied by inverse of covariance matrix, and this will be multiplied by x minus mc matrix. Okay, so again, since it is distance, so the pixel will be assigned to class C, class for which the distance is lowest. So The disadvantage that was there in minimum distance to means algorithm, that it is not using class variability, we have overcome in Mahalanobis decision rule. But the disadvantage is that it tends to overclassify signatures with large value in covariance matrix. As you have seen, we are directly multiplying it with covariance matrix. So that is one problem area that we have in Mahalanobis distance. So it is overclassifying the signatures for which covariance matrix values are higher. Then it is parametric in nature. That means if the signatures are having a normal distribution curve, then it will work fine. If the signatures are non-parametric, then there would be problem in calculation. The next algorithm is maximum likelihood or Bayes decision rule. Now, maximum likelihood, MLC, as we already mostly call it as maximum likelihood classifier. So MLC is a rule which is probability based, and it finds out the probability that a pixel belongs to a particular class. The basic equation that we use in MLC assumes that the probabilities are equal for all the classes. For a pixel to be put in class 1, class 2, class 3, it has equal probability. Suppose we know by a priori knowledge that the probability of a pixel to be assigned in a particular class is not same. There we have change in probability, so we can assign weightage to particular classes, and then it becomes Bayes decision rule. Okay. The equation for maximum likelihood or Bayes classifier is given here. Inverse of AC is the percent probability, natural log of probability, percentage probability, minus 0.5 natural log of covariance matrix, minus 0.5 into transpose of X minus MC matrix multiplied by inverse of covariance matrix multiplied by X minus MC, that is measurement vector minus mean of the class matrix. Okay. Then again we are calculating the distance. So the pixel is assigned to the class for which distance is lowest. The advantage is that it is the most accurate classifier, and it takes into account all the parameters that are there. It takes into account mean, standard deviation, covariance matrix. So all of them are there. It is an extensive equation which requires a long time to compute, and the computation time increases as we go on increasing the number of bands. Again, the problem of overclassification of signatures with large values in covariance matrix is there. But so far in supervised classification algorithms, this is one of the best algorithms. Now coming to the next part, that is unsupervised classification. Unsupervised classification requires only a minimum amount of initial input from the analyst. The numerical operations are performed which search for natural grouping of the spectral properties of the pixel. User allows computer to select the class means and covariance matrix to be used in classification. Now, in unsupervised classification, the classification is always a two-step process. In the first stage, the computer is asked to create the mean values, which class means or cluster means, which will be used in the second stage. In the first stage, the cluster means are calculated automatically by the system. In the second stage, simple minimum distance to means classification algorithm is run. So, clustering algorithm used for unsupervised classification, they generally vary according to efficiency with which clustering takes place. Commonly used methods are chain method and isodata clustering, which we will be discussing. Now coming to chain method of unsupervised classification. Chain method operates in a two-pass mode. That means all the pixels are evaluated, are checked twice. It passes through the registered multispectral data set 2 times. In the first pass, the program reads through the data set and sequentially builds the cluster. Now, how it builds the cluster, I will show you. Now, suppose we are having a hypothetical image which has 3 pixels, pixel 1, pixel 2 and pixel 3. Pixel 1 is having a value of 10 and 10. Pixel 2 has a value of 20 and 20 in 2 bands, and pixel 3 has a value of 30 and 20. Okay. Now, how in the pass 1 is happening? In pass 1, what the system will do is it will sequentially evaluate each and every pixel. So, sequentially it will go to pixel number 1. Okay. So, now it will check whether pixel number 1 should create a new cluster or it should merge into an existing cluster. So, at this moment there is no existing cluster. So, pixel 1 will make a new cluster. Now, we have cluster number 1 which has 1 pixel, which is pixel number 1. And what is the mean of this cluster? The mean of the cluster will be 10, 10 because it has only 1 pixel. The value is 10, 10. So, the mean of this cluster becomes 10 and 10. Okay. So, now this is done. Now, it will go to next pixel and find out whether pixel number 2 should merge with the existing cluster or whether it should create a new cluster. So, how it will do? It will calculate the spectral distance of pixel 2 with mean of cluster 1. So, what is the mean of cluster 1? 10, 10. What is the pixel value of pixel 2? That is 20, 20. So, when it calculates the Euclidean distance, it finds out that the D is 14.14. Okay. Now, this 14.14 is compared with one parameter that the operator has provided. Suppose that parameter capital R is 15 in our case. Okay. So, naturally 14.14 is less than 15. So, what will happen? It will merge into the existing cluster. So, now cluster 1 has 2 pixels, pixel 1 and pixel 2, and since the pixels have been added, so the mean of the cluster has now shifted from 10, 10 to 15, 15 because 10 plus 20 upon 2, 10 plus 20 upon 2. So, now the mean is shifted to 15 and 15. Okay. This is done. It will go to pixel number 3. So, it will evaluate whether the pixel 3 should go into existing cluster or it will form a new cluster. It will find out the Euclidean distance between pixel 3 and mean of cluster 1. This Euclidean distance is coming out to be 15.81, which is more than the R value specified, that is 15. So, it will create a new cluster. Okay. So, like this, the new clusters are formed, and when new pixels go on adding into these clusters, the mean value gets changed. Okay. So, the mean is shifting. So, by the end of pass 1, the means are calculated for all the clusters. Okay. Number of clusters have to be provided by user. Okay, certain parameters are to be specified. So, capital R, number of clusters. So, this has to be specified by the user. So, by the end of pass 1, the cluster means are calculated by the algorithm. In the pass 2, each pixel is evaluated with these cluster means using a simple minimum distance to means classification logic, and the pixels are put into these clusters. Okay, so that by the end of pass 2 you have clusters which are less than the same or less than the number of clusters that you have specified, and they have group of similar pixels. Okay, so this is chain method. The next method is isodata clustering. Isodata stands for iterative self-organizing data analysis technique. And isodata represents a set of heuristic procedures that have been incorporated into an iterative classification algorithm. Now it is iterative. What do we mean by iterative? Iterative means the same procedure will rerun and rerun till the time we attain good results, or the number of iterations are over. So isodata algorithm is a modification of k-mean clustering algorithm, which includes rules for merging and splitting of the clusters also. Isodata is an iterative algorithm because it makes a large number of passes through the remote sensing data set until specified results are obtained. Isodata does not allocate its mean values based on analysis of pixel. Rather, an arbitrary assignment of Cmax cluster take place. So these are the parameters that the analyst is required to provide. Cmax, that is maximum number of cluster. Capital T value, that means maximum percentage of pixels whose class value is allowed to unchange between iteration. Now suppose I have specified this capital T as 98%. Okay, so to break the iteration, the number of pixels which are changing their clusters between last and last but one iteration is only 100 minus 98, that is 2%. So 98% should not change their value. That means maximum pixels are not changing, then the iteration will break. Okay, so this is value that operator can suggest, can specify. Then we have capital M, that is maximum number of time isodata is to be performed. So suppose this capital T value is not achieved, then after this capital M value, suppose I say 10 iterations, so after 10 iterations the program will automatically stop. The program also has to specify minimum members in a cluster. How many members are there? So suppose we have specified 10 pixels. So any cluster which is having less than 10 10 pixels will automatically get merged with the nearest cluster. Maximum standard deviation for a cluster, suppose we specify that as a particular value of standard deviation should be 2.7. So if the standard deviation is more than 2.7, then the cluster will be divided into two parts, so that the too much variation is not there in the cluster. Then there is another value that is to be specified, that is a split separation value. Generally in the algorithm it is kept as 0.0. If we are changing this split separation value from 0.0 to any other value, then it takes the place of maximum standard deviation. So any of these values have to be taken. Then another thing is minimum distance between cluster means. So suppose we specify that the distance should be 10 units. So any cluster that is closer than cluster means which are closer than 10 units, they will automatically be merged. That means these two clusters are similar pixels. So as I have already told you, the data, the pixel, clusters are arbitrarily designed in the beginning. So what is happening is you specify, you plot the feature space, and then suppose we want 5 clusters, so arbitrarily the area is divided into 5 areas, okay, in the first stage. So every area will have its mean. So now each pixel both inside and outside the cluster will be checked whether the pixel is closer to this cluster, this or that. Okay, so then the cluster, the pixels in the cluster gets changing, so the mean of the cluster also gets shifted. Like this, the mean of the cluster gets shifted and the number of clusters are attained. Okay, in between, after each iteration, the clusters are checked whether the clusters are close to each other, so they will be merged, whether the clusters should be splitted. So all those procedure has to be done. So thank you so much.